Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's my pleasure today to be here with Austin Herlihy, who's Executive Vice President of Radius Commercial Group. And Austin, this is really going to be a great conversation because you and I talk, every once in a while about whatever sort of, hot real estate issues going on, and I might be writing about it. But we've got some real exciting times going on right now on State Street, downtown, Lower State Street, and I just want to kick it off with having a conversation with you about what's happened, the recent news with the Indigo Hotel and this big sale, and what does this mean? Austin, welcome. Let's talk right there. What's going on with the sale of this hotel?
Well, I think each seller has different reasons for selling, and but I would say, just as from a general standpoint, I think what's happened is that a lot of the hotel owners that survived COVID, it was a tough time for hotels, and then the market kind of surged back. And I think a lot of hotel owners at one time were probably looking at the value of their hotel during COVID thinking, oh my gosh, I just lost 50% of the value of my property. No one's ever going to go in a hotel ever again, and so forth. Then as COVID has kind of loosened up, or we live with it, or whatever it is, travel has actually been strong. And certainly, regionally from Los Angeles and San Francisco and so forth, but we've seen an increase in average daily rates, occupancy, and, basically in a matter of a couple months, hotels regained all their value and maybe even a little bit more. And I think that some owners are probably thinking, that was a pretty risky time. I remember how difficult that time was. And if I can get out right now and buy a leased investment property that has a 10 or 20-year lease on it versus having an operating business, maybe this is the time to do it if I get a strong number. And so we're seeing that kind of across the board. And then you couple that with what's going on in the economy right now with inflation, and we're seeing, 7% inflation here, and hotels are really your best hedge to inflation because you can adjust your rate nightly. And so typically hotels ride inflation better than in any other asset class. If you're buying an industrial building with a long-term lease, you're usually capped with, 3% annual rent adjustments or 5% or whatever. But, if inflation starts to take off, then the landlord's capped on their income, and hotels are certainly a better vehicle for that.
So we had this big transaction that you were recently involved with, Hotel Indigo downtown, 100 block of State Street. Tell me about why that was significant and that's a big deal for Santa Barbara.
Well, I think, the whole emergence of the Funk Zone and Lower State Street, I mean, ever since we sold the Hotel Californian development project, and that was it. I'm just go back a ways, but that was an interesting time because the Funk Zone didn't even exist then. And when Michael Rosenfeld bought the hotel project, and everyone kind of felt like this thing's really going to happen after 20 years of Levy not being able to develop it, then you saw, before the hotel was ever even developed, you saw a bunch of owners buying land around it. And hence, the Funk Zone was created. It was always called the Funk Zone. I mean, for probably 10 years before that, but you didn't see a bunch of restaurants and stuff like that. And now it's really become the hotspot. And the irony is that it's really the biggest draw for the hotel, certainly for the Californian and the Indigo. And both of these existed, or the Indigo existed prior to the Californian and prior to the Funk Zone as well. And in fact, the Indigo probably suffered during construction and all that time, but since you have the Roma Santos that had built their piece, and then you have the Californian, and you have the Indigo, and then you have all the great retail and stuff right now.
Austin, oh, there we go. Good. I would say we lost your camera. Good.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's really changed, the market down there, and it's created a ton of demand from LA hotel owners, San Francisco, New York. I mean, we had so much interest in this hotel. It's crazy. I think the other thing is also this hotel was under $20 million. So, wealthy individuals could still purchase it. It wasn't just institutional type, or billionaires or something like that. Like when we sold the Californian, that's not some mom and pop or someone that could buy a hotel like that, right? I mean, that takes, institutional capital and so forth. So, but yeah, I think all of those things coupled together created, a lot of demand for the hotel.
And I think there was something like 19 offers or something like that, and just a lot of interest, and you were able to close the deal really quickly. How new is that? Has it ever been like that for the hotel industry?
Not that I know of. We had 11 offers, but I'm sure we probably could have had 20, but I think people started to realize pretty quickly that it was going to be a dogfight. And a lot of guys just said, hey, I'm not going to jump in this deal and try to get it. And so, yeah, I have not seen 11 offers on a property before. It certainly doesn't make things easier, right? Selecting a buyer is a lot more challenging. And so this particular deal we went on the market like in first week of November, and we had a call for offers pretty quickly because ownership really wanted to try to sell by the end of the year because of all the potential capital gains going up in 2022. So that helped us in selecting the buyer that eventually bought it, was because we needed someone that could pay cash and close pretty quickly. And quite honestly, my partner, Chris Parker, did an incredible job. I was actually out on my honeymoon, and my partner did an incredible job along with the owner's legal counsel, Michael Cage. He was incredible as well. And it was a great team effort to get it closed.
So let's talk a little bit about the Funk Zone and Lower State Street. What is it about the appeal? Somebody who's looking to buy a hotel who can spend, under $20 million for it. What is it about kind of, I don't know if this is the right term. It's sort of an urban hotel. It's near people, it's near restaurants, it's near businesses, as opposed to like those hotels on Cabrillo Boulevard, or those hotels that are sort of like, far away from where people are at, that are sort of like resorts or, destinations with these great views. What is it about, and somebody who wants to buy a hotel, what is it about the Funk Zone and Lower State Street that appeals to them?
Well, I think it's just the proximity and being able to walk to everything. And, some people come up, they take the train up, get off, walk to the hotel. They can spend all weekend without getting in a car. They can rent bikes. And as you know, Santa Barbara has a lot of hills, and that area is pretty flat, right? And you can ride bikes to the harbor. You can ride bikes over to, now we have that new East Beach restaurant. I can't remember what it's called, but
the Union Kitchen. Yeah.
Right. And then you have the Funk Zone right there. And you could do a couple different wine tasting, and then you've got some great restaurants. I mean, Lakita just got a Michelin star. The Lark obviously is great. You've got Santo Mezcal's one of my favorite restaurants. And then you have Carlos's new concept I'm blanking on right now, that's over on Cabrillo. And so it's really, for somebody that wants to come up for a weekend, it's nice. And I think the thing, versus, the Californian's a different experience. Obviously, that's a 5-star hotel. It's much more expensive. I think the other thing that a lot of people liked about the Indigo is it's the cheaper version in the same location. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. It's dramatically cheaper, right, than what the Californian is. And so from a value standpoint, it's a good value for the consumer, right, to pay $200 or $300 a night versus $600 or $700 a night, but you're in the exact same location as the guy that's paying, you know, $600, $700 a night.
Right.
But you
Now,
don't have all the amenities that the Californian has, and you don't have, the rooms aren't nearly as big and nice and beautiful and that sort of stuff. But I
when you
think for
walk
the people,
outside, it's very similar. Yeah, it's the same
right,
thing.
exactly.
Now, I know you talked about who's going to run this. What can you tell me sort of about what the Indigo Hotel is going to be? I think the language was it was going to be maybe a branded hotel or an independent operator. I know we don't actually know who purchased it yet, but what can you say about what kind of hotel it's going to be?
The truth is, I don't know. I think that I think they're looking at both of their options. So they're the one of the other reasons why the ownership partnership decided to sell the hotel was the franchise agreement with Indigo is up in February. So you're able to make those decisions as to, rebranding it or going on your own boutique name or something like that. And so the new owners, I think, are looking at both options. And my guess is they're probably, negotiating with a couple brands and also looking at running it themselves.
Okay.
I don't know that they've made a decision yet.
Okay. So let's talk about like what in the context of what has been the story for, media writes about it, politicians, the activists, the business community. Everybody has sort of opinion of State Street and what's been happening with sort of the vacancies, the turnover, commercial real estate. There's a lot of stuff going on that plays into this narrative of State Street in transition, that there's something needs to sort of happen to sort of make it better, depending on what block you're in. And obviously we had the pandemic, have outdoor dining. It's really revitalized some of those blocks. Some of those blocks are just packed with people, and it's fun to be out there. Not every block has experienced that kind of benefit, largely depending on what kind of use it is. Can you talk? I mean, you are an expert in this. You know this stuff better than all of the spectators do. I mean, you're on the ground. You're knowledgeable. What's your take on State Street right now and its appeal, or its growth, its challenge areas? What do you think of it?
Well, I like that they've, I don't know if you want to call it shut it down or opened up. I like that its current state. However, I think it needs to be refined. I think it needs to have more of a uniform, you can't just have people building, hodgepodgey, different decks and things like that. I mean, Santa Barbara takes a lot of pride in its architecture. It is in the Pueblo Viejo district and it should be beautiful, but I do like the concept of it. I don't think it needs to go past Carrillo Street. I think keeping it shut down between Herlihy and Carrillo is probably the right thing. And then I think they should probably open it up past there. But that's my own personal belief. I think it certainly made it a more vibrant feel in a time when the 500 block was really, really struggling prior to that. And, I hope that, whatever is going to happen with the mall, and I don't know, but we've got to figure out something. There should be, I think there should be, concerts on Thursday nights. I think there should be a lot of different things going on to draw people down there. And I also think the city is doing a good job at pushing housing down there. I think I read an article yesterday about Governor Newsom is now going to be pushing housing in core downtown areas. I think housing will help that. But I also think the city needs to relax a little. Maybe relax isn't the word, but they need to work with the business community a lot better. And I think Randy coming in is going to make a difference. At least I hope it does. I know that Randy wants to. And but it's not a very friendly environment when some small mom and pop risk their life to open up a store on State Street and sign on the lease personally and all these different things. And it takes them 13 months to get a tenant improvement permit.
Yeah.
right? I mean, whoever these people are out there, living the American dream, starting a business and trying to, um, make a living for their family and do something for the community, and it shouldn't take that long. And most landlords don't want to give 13 months of free rent for for a tenant to get their tenant improvement permit. And so there, in lies the issue. And a lot of them, they're struggling from day one because they're already been paying rent for 6 or 7 months by the time they can actually open.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And so the city really needs to streamline for local businesses. And I know they passed some ordinance, but I think they need to do a better job, because it's interesting. I have listings out in Goleta. We have the Plaza Shopping Center out in Goleta right now. We're leasing it like crazy. I think we're going to be 100% leased here shortly.
So is that the one with is it the Albertsons is out there?
Correct.
And the Halloween store
Yeah,
was there
correct.
for a while?
We put
IHOP's
in,
going in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, IHOP's going in there, and we have a Planet Fitness going in there, and we have a bunch of different stuff that I can't necessarily talk about yet. But and then you take a look at Coast Village Road. Coast Village Road made an offer for a client today on the former Cava restaurant. Okay. And my guess is they're going to have at least probably 6 offers on that restaurant. State Street, you're not seeing that same sort of demand, and it used to be, that I remember when I first got into the business, it was like, oh my gosh, I got a listing on State Street. Like, this is like amazing. I'll be able to lease this thing in a couple of weeks. And then that's not necessarily the case anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think I really think the homeless issue is probably its biggest issue, because you look at the places that I just talked about and they don't have homeless people. And I think we've got to figure out some solution to the homeless problem, because it's killing local businesses, it's killing tourism, and it's going to have a massive effect on the city's revenue, on everything.
Yeah. And is it worse, Austin, in your estimation? Obviously, Santa Barbara has been a destination for homeless people for a long time. There's always been homeless. In your experience, have you seen it getting worse on State Street in recent years?
Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm. I mean, all you have to do is go sit at Joe's for lunch, and you'll see some sort of spectacle, right? I mean, some guy screaming at someone and yelling at them, or someone going to the bathroom on State Street, it's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And out of town investors, will they get that into the weeds? I mean, will they say like, oh, Santa Barbara's got a homeless problem, we're not going to go there, we'll go somewhere else? Well, that's an issue, you're saying. It's not just locals talking about it.
100%.
Okay.
When I was selling the Amazon building, we had a buyer who was very interested. I mean, he was like all over me. We want to buy this, pick me. It was one of those situations. It was like right before COVID, and he came up and he was like, I don't want to buy that building. There's like 20 homeless people, surrounding in the parking lot, living in the bushes, etc. So it 100% does affect the values of people's, assets in town.
Yeah. One thing on the Amazon building, just sort of bigger picture, are we going to see any sort of big companies coming back downtown? I mean, we've lost Saks Fifth Avenue. We lost, I guess Marshall's is there. They're kind of a chain. Are we ever going to see that switch where we see sort of those marquees? Obviously Nordstrom's in the mall, but they left. Where we see those marquee icon brands coming downtown, or that's over. It's all about sort of smaller spaces, experiential, restaurants, unique retail. I mean, are we ever going to see that trend shift in your estimation?
I don't think you're ever going to see any big boxes really coming back into town. Mm-hmm. I don't see that. I think there's a very good chance that we could see some some big household name tech companies come and move into town. Really, Goleta and Carpinteria, the reason their office and industrial market exists is because Santa Barbara never had the footprint big enough to house companies, right? And so you'd get to a certain size, and then you'd have to go out to Goleta or down to Carpinteria because there just aren't buildings big enough to support Yardi or Appfolio or Appeal or any of these bigger companies, Procore, right? And so they have to move out of the area. This is the very first time, I mean, other than when we leased the Saks to Amazon, but now you have an opportunity with a lot of square footage. And I think you could see some companies move in and convert that space to office space. And I think if that happens, I think it would be a good thing, because then you have all these tech companies or whatever type of company it would be, downtown, right? And those people are walking to lunches and they're going after work to get dinner and a beer or something like that, and shopping, and maybe they'll pick up, some clothes or whatever it is. And I think that will help all of the surrounding retail around it. But right now we just have, a big hole over there.
Yeah. Quick thing on Amazon. Obviously they moved downtown, and then the pandemic hit. There was some talk about, they're going to, increase the cost of real estate. Is Amazon good for downtown? Bad for downtown? What can you say about having such a huge brand company, office workers, and the pandemic, of course, affected all that, but are they ultimately going to be good for downtown and real estate?
I think so. Yeah. I think they're going to be really good for downtown. I think you have, you're going to have eventually, when these offices all reopen, but you're going to have a ton of, high paid jobs, downtown. A lot of them are young people that want to ride bikes. They're not really focused on cars and stuff like that. They have a huge bike racking system and stuff like that. And I think, you're going to probably start seeing a trend of that once we kind of get through this COVID issue.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about you, Austin. You sound like you've been around Santa Barbara a while. You know a lot. Can you tell me your story, and how'd you get to Santa Barbara and get into commercial real estate?
Well, I came here to go to school. And while I was finishing up at UCSB, I had always raced sailboats professionally, or I didn't race them professionally at the time, but then I started, it just kind of morphed into this thing where my passion turned into something where I was making money doing something that I really loved to do. And so I was traveling around the world sailing, but my goal, all through my life, I really wanted to get into commercial real estate. And I took this little path over and did a bunch of sailing all over the world and met some interesting people. And when I got to a certain point where I was getting married and having kids, and I knew that wasn't for me. And I was like, I really want to do what my original dream was, which was to do commercial real estate. And a friend of mine knew Steve Brown at Radius Group and set up a meeting with Steve and I, and met with Steve, and I said, "Hey, Steve, I really want to get into commercial real estate and this and that." And he said, and Steve's like the godfather of commercial real estate for Santa Barbara. He's one of the most respected guys, and he was my mentor and really just a great human being. And Steve said to me, he goes, "Look, you should go to LA for a couple of years and then come back and talk to me." And I'm like, I was kind of discouraged. So I left, and I went home, and I was like, gosh, I kind of felt like this guy was the guy I wanted to work under. And I saw this opportunity. And so I wrote him back and I said, "I want to meet with you again." And so I went back in and I said, "I don't think you get it. I really want to do this. I know I don't have any experience, but this is what I want to do. And I want to work under you. I can tell you're the kind of guy I want to work for." And he goes, "Look, Austin, I appreciate it. I can see you're really passionate about it. I just don't even have the time to take to even show you what to do and all these sort of things. And he's like, just go learn for a couple of years and come back and talk to me. So I went home all discouraged and talked to my dad, and my dad's like, you got some money saved up, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, and you could figure out a job description that you could do right away without him having to hold your hand all the time, which was clearly was probably Steve's concern. And so I called some of my friends in the commercial real estate business down in LA and got they called junior guys in commercial real estate runners. And I got their job description. And so I just showed up to Steve's office one day for the third time. And I said, look, Steve, I don't think you're taking me seriously enough here. This is what I want to do. I want to work for you. Here's a job description of the things that I can do right away to help you. And I'll work for free for 6 months. And in 6 months, if you don't think I'm worth it, you can cut me loose and no hard feelings. And he looked at me and he goes, you really wore me down. I'll see you for lunch tomorrow. And that's how I got my job. And
Wow.
and from that point, I think in maybe 3 months into it, I had closed a land deal that brought in pretty good sized check. And he looked at me and he's like, I think this is going to work, and so Steve and I worked together we still work together. We just sold the former Penfield and Smith building together, but we worked, he was my mentor and really taught me everything that I know. And we worked together for 12 or 13 years. And then subsequently, Chris and I kind of spun off and are doing our own thing now.
Wow. So persistence pays off. You showed him, huh? You didn't need to go to LA to be successful.
I don't know if I showed him or he showed me, but I think it was a little bit of both.
Now, you said you came here for school. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Coronado down in San Diego.
Okay. So is that the island, Coronado? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
So what did your parents do?
My dad was in real estate. My grandfather was in real estate. My uncle was in real estate. So we kind of come from a real estate family.
What is it about real estate? I mean, obviously, if you're successful, it's it's a lucrative industry. So, but I mean, you also gotta love what you do. It's hard work. You just aren't out there closing deals every day. There's a lot
Right.
that goes into it that is not glorious. That people don't see. What do you like about it?
I think in my mind, it's simple to understand. You're not coming up with some algorithm for, some new speaker, iPhone or whatever. Real estate, in my mind, I can get my head around it and I can understand. You buy a building for this, you lease it for this, you can sell it for this. Some people might think it's rocket science. It's not. And I love the simplicity of it. The business can be tough. I won't say that, there's definitely been moments where I felt, pretty beaten up, and you work really hard on something for, a year, 2 years sometimes. A lot of the deals, especially if you're working on development deals, which I've done a lot of, you put in a ton of time and then you see it fizzle away and it's deflating, right? It's defeating. You're really get discouraged. You're like, I just worked on this for so long. I never made a single dime on it. So you have to have thick skin, and you've got to keep a positive outlook to really make it work.
And how much of it is people skills too? I would imagine with residential real estate, there's so much of that personality, and your clients got to like you, and you got to click, and it's like this team. You're doing it together. Commercial real estate, is it like that? Do you need to get along with your clients?
It's very different.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's funny that people think, just because it's real estate, it's somewhere, but it's very different. You have to know a lot of information, because that's really the value that you bring as a broker to your client is, because most of my clients don't need my hand holding on, what to do in a purchase and sale agreement and, all these different things. What they want is they want market information, and they want someone that they trust. And then they make the decision, right? I mean, it's not like in residential when you're, probably holding someone's hand in their first home buy or whatever, it's a nerve-wracking experience. I'm dealing with professionals, and really my job's to get information and give them accurate information that they can make sound business, decisions on. And then your reputation comes by how accurate that information is and how you provide it to people, because that's what they use to make their business decisions.
Yeah. Let's kind of wrap up and come full circle. You mentioned how hotels, they're sort of safe from inflation because they can raise the room rates. City of Santa Barbara is taking in more TOT tax. And it's obviously because we rebounded a lot from the pandemic, but also the rates are higher than they were like 2019 or something. Looking out ahead, right? I mean, how hot can the hotel industry be, and for how long? Like, use your commercial real estate crystal ball for us.
It's interesting. You and I can kind of hear where you're going with it, but if you think about it, once travel starts to open up internationally, you're going to see a huge push of international travelers coming over here. And Santa Barbara has always been a massive destination for Europeans. It just is. And so I think there's going to be a whole nother wave. And I think once you start getting corporate events back and so forth, I think the hotel industry has some legs in it.
Yeah. And the local stuff, the homeless issue, we have a new mayor. You touched on that. Is that a harder, longer term issue to solve? How optimistic are you that we're going to all be in sync here about what the future of State Street's going to be?
Not very optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, it's interesting to me that I kind of view homelessness as probably one of the biggest issues we have in our country. Mm-hmm. And you look at like our country and how divided we are politically, right? Yet you don't hear a Republican stance on homelessness, and you don't hear a Democrat stance on homelessness. No one wants to touch it.
Yeah.
And really, I think it's the biggest issue we have, and we got to figure it out. I don't know how. I'm not, smart enough to probably figure all of that out, and I'm not well equipped in understanding the laws that people have as far as rights and so forth. But someone needs to dive into this, and I think if someone can figure it out in a way that's humane, I think that person will be a real champion for many communities, right? I mean, for Santa Barbara, for Santa Monica, for San Diego, you have a lot of these issues everywhere.
All right. Well, Austin, Executive Vice President of Radius Commercial Group, I really appreciate your time. You're an expert on these issues, and I feel a little bit smarter talking to you. Now I can have somewhat decent conversations with others now, just sort of listening to you sort of talk about this scope. So thanks a lot, and enjoy your weekend. You're getting away a little bit, having a little vacation.
Yeah, we're up in Mammoth. Our family's up here, and can enjoy the long weekend and get back to work on Tuesday.
Okay, Austin, have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. Take care.